Well, salutations, fellow vidiots. Welcome back to yet another episode of that full moon madness, baby. So today we have for you a movie that I fell quite deeply in love with recently. It's become an all-time favorite for me, and it is the first proto-full moon movie to show up on our list here. So that makes it historic in its own right for our series, let alone for the fucking history of full moon. And that is Tourist Trap. I'm sure any of you guys who saw our pilot episode were awaiting my review of this because I gushed about it pretty considerably in that. And I meant every fucking word of it, you know. This movie is absolutely amazing. It's the first collaboration between, Charlie Band and David Schmoeller, who went on to direct the first Puppet Master movie, which, as you well know, spawned their largest franchise to date. Also his first collaboration, to my knowledge, with Ted Nicolaou, who went on to direct Subspecies, like the entire fucking franchise. So, another one of their biggest franchises to date. This movie is genuinely fucking creepy. Through and through. Top to fucking bottom, toe to tits. It comes at you with everything it has, and somehow still only got a fucking PG rating. It's just better than the sum of its parts and what you might expect going in. I don't know how else to describe that other than to just describe it. So, here we fucking go. Tourist Trap.
Tourist Trap was written and directed by David Schmoeller. It was produced and co-written by Larry J. Carroll, and it stars Chuck Connors, Jocelyn Jones, John Van Ness, Robin Sherwood, Tanya Roberts, Don Jeffrey, and Keith McDermott. It's got music by Pino Donaggio, cinematography by Nicholas von Sternberg. It was edited by Ted Nicolaou. It was executive produced by Charlie Band himself, and it was released on March 14th of 1979. Tourist Trap's essentially what happens if you take Texas Chainsaw Massacre, House of Wax, and Psycho and mix them together in a ghastly little goulash of a fright film. Basic gist of it is this group of kids that are all on this caravan-style road trip in two separate cars across country end up stopping at this roadside attraction called Slosson's Lost Oasis, looking for their friend who had gone missing while trying to get a tire repaired. Mr. Slosson's a pretty friendly old dude with a tragic backstory. He lost his wife to cancer, apparently. His brother, who used to create the wax sculptures for his roadside wax museum / just general museum of trinkets and hoarding, got hired away by Hollywood, apparently, and so he's basically just crushingly lonely living out here by himself in this increasingly run-down attraction full of all types of creepy fucking mannequins and animatronics. He seems like a fairly friendly fellow at first, offering them cold beers and company while they wait to find their friend, and he, prepares to assist them in fixing their second vehicle, which is now having engine trouble. All seems well until they notice this house behind the attraction that he says is where his brother lives. And this makes very little sense because he had already mentioned that his brother was hired away by Hollywood to do his wax sculptures for them. So bit by bit, this story that he's giving these kids starts to unravel as one by one they end up going missing, all being abducted by this masked assailant with telekinetic powers. And that's about as far as I can go into it without totally spoiling the couple of pretty effective twists that we have peppered throughout the runtime of this film. I just can't say enough good stuff about it. Chuck Connors' performance is truly heartbreaking and bone-chilling at the same time. Jocelyn Jones plays a good sympathetic ear to his problems. Tanya Roberts is absolutely a treat. The other kids on the cast aren't bad either. The production design by Robert A. Burns, who many of you guys know from doing the sets for Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Hills Have Eyes, absolutely shines. He also did most of the special effects with the mannequins and the couple of pretty goddamn creative kills that we got going on up in here. And the soundtrack just adds a truly haunting vibe to the entire thing, which is haunting enough on its own. Tourist Trap is a great example of a slasher movie, or just a horror film in general, that doesn't rely at all on nudity or blood and gore. All of the violence in the film is there, and it makes sense given the context. It's done to be properly creepy and not just gratuitous. It's one of the few horror films that genuinely creeps me out, and it just gets better every time I watch it. It also doesn't hurt too that there's neat little extra layers of goodness in there, like the fact that they reused a bunch of stock sound effects pretty expertly, I might add. From everything from Lady and the Tramp to I think Lost in Space or The Time Machine. So you got that to sort of spot as you go through it if you're familiar with the various stuff that they use sound effects from. And there's also several lines of dialogue that are subtle callbacks to the movies that inspired this. David Schmoeller makes no bones about admitting to the fact that he was very influenced by Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He kind of ran in similar circles of those dudes. That's why you got Robert Burns up in here doing the production design. And it just worked out. I think it's one of those movies that comes close to being an homage to those things, but it took the stuff that it borrowed from those and did a unique enough riff on it that it became an entirely different animal all on its own. It's also a great example of how like rating or lack of distribution can affect a movie's like performance at the box office, but it being able to be played on syndicated television can develop an entire cult following around it. Tourist Trap has always been kind of passed over by a lot of people, I think because of its PG rating. It was one of the only slasher movies to ever receive a PG rating, which is unfortunate because, you know, it did cut back on their theatrical revenue. People see PG and they assume that it's going to be soft, but Tourist Trap is in no way soft. It's creepy with a bunch of fucking jagged edges. It's just not gratuitous. So they were pretty disappointed to find that they got this PG rating and it performed poorly at the box office because of that, but many a generation of children were scarred for life by seeing this shit on TV, so it got its cult following from there, and in recent years, more and more people are becoming aware of it because of the love it gets from those original fans, and because of how genuinely creepy it looks even on the surface. I'm definitely among those numbers, and I'm glad that I am. It's one of my favorite horror movies, hands down, that I've discovered in the last 5 years, and it's probably on its way to becoming one of my favorite horror movies ever.
I honestly just cannot say enough good stuff about fucking Tourist Trap. It's a movie that you can check out today for free in really good quality, and I think that you should, because not only is it going to give you a better understanding of what was going on prior to Full Moon's establishment, but David Schmoeller brought back some of the masks in his later Full Moon movie, Netherworld, so it will make that more enjoyable for you on a different level as well. And honestly, I think probably one of the coolest things about Tourist Trap is that PG rating. Because this shit is fucking bone-chilling. I'm not exaggerating. It really does make me uncomfortable. And it just is fascinating to me. The only thing holding it back from being rated R was literally like probably some tits and some language, because a couple of the kills are pretty fucking gruesome in this as well. I assure you, you will not be disappointed in checking this out. If any of you guys want to join us for our discussions in the future, as always, let us know. I've watched this a solid 5 times since discovering it. The first time initially on Tubi, a second time down the road on Tubi, and then 3 times since getting the DVD. And I don't see that slowing down anytime soon. Especially considering I've got some audio commentary by David Schmoeller to take a trip through. There is also a pretty decent little mini documentary on here for the making of the movie, so worth checking out as well. Overall, I think Full Moon did a really good job on this release of the movie. Wish I'd gotten the deluxe set that came with like the cool box and stuff, and the DVD Blu-ray combo, as well as an action figure. If they ever put that back in print, I probably will upgrade. In any case, I'm happy that I have this edition in the collection, and I hope you guys are happy I was able to use it to do this fine review for you. And that does it for this review, guys. I know we did, I think, promise you guys a couple of proto-Full Moon flicks to close out this first wave, but our actual closer for the first wave is going to be a little nod to our second haul of Full Moon movies from the Valentine's Day sale.
The world of Full Moon lives online at fullmoondirect.com. Classics like Puppet Master, Demonic Toys, Subspecies, and more recent favorites Ginger Dead Man, Evil Bong, Killjoy, and more can be found at fullmoondirect.com on DVD, Blu-ray, limited edition box sets, replicas, toys, shirts, and more. Only available at fullmoondirect.com.